What is up, everybody? I'm Bobby, and that's Chase. This is the Casual Hour, and we want to tell you about video games. It is episode 388, a deep dive that Chase will be hosting tonight. Chase, how are you feeling about that?
Great. I love it.
Wonderful. We're coming at you live on YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. And Chase, I have a question for you. I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Do you prefer a short game or a long game?
I think generally shorter games because you get to play more of them, but there's some games I put some time into.
What is a short game by our count?
I would say a short game is something. I probably prefer something a little shorter than most people consider a short game, but I'm looking for something like 4 to 5 hours or less.
Okay.
Like some people are like, oh, an 8 to 12 is short, and I'm like, no, that's like a normal game. I want a short game.
I think 10 and below is kind of my idea of a short game, but I also think it depends on the genre. Like by RPG standards, Super Mario RPG is a short game,
Right.
but this was a huge conversation over on our threads. We had like almost 113, I think 113, 114 votes on this one. 63% of you listeners out there prefer long games. And
I mean, it makes some sense if you're not a sicko like us who have a podcast. Totally. And we've talked about the podcaster's dilemma and our need to talk about multiple games over multiple weeks. And if you're just one of those people who, buys Madden and is like, I'm good for a while, or you buy Call of Duty and know you're going to be playing the multiplayer of that forever, or God forbid you buy Destiny, like you're done. You're just done. You can play that game, and you don't need to buy any more games. And there is something kind of comforting about not feeling the need to buy a bunch of new fucking video games.
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's a lot of topics on. I think value still plays a lot into our length for folks. Like cost of game should equal length of game. And while there's a whole other thread or a whole other podcast on that topic, it's one that like I like to have a long game always cooking, surrounded by some short games. That's kind of like my sweet spot for me.
I do that for books too. It's like I've got my main book. Yeah, and then I've got like little things that, for me, a manga is a perfect thing of like, I'm going to read like a full chapter of my real book. And then I'm going to read, a couple of little chapters that take me like 5 minutes each of this manga before I go to bed. And it's a nice way of like cooling down from reading all the big words.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's only a few things in my life that are long form anymore. Most of what I consume, because of just the way things are designed, tweets, TikToks, etc., it's all short form content. It's nice to get a meaty thing to dig into. But speaking of meaty things to dig into, besides you and me,
Chase Kinnicky.
What are we doing tonight? What is a deep dive? What are we diving deeply into? Walk me through, and the listeners, what the hell we're up against.
Yeah, we've done a lot of different kinds of deep dives in the past. We've taken a listen to our favorite video game soundtracks, which we can't do anymore because we're on Twitch. We've done like histories of game studios. I've done a lot of show and tell stuff with old game peripherals. But with it just being the two of us now, I think I think it's just kind of fun to talk about some of the games that we really like, and just finding ways of talking about games that we don't necessarily bring up all the time on the show, or in some cases that we do, but finding new ways to talk about games that we like. And we're gonna growth max a little bit. We're gonna work on some lists.
I love it.
So for this episode and maybe some deep dives in the future, I'm not saying we're changing our deep dive philosophy to only this from now on, but every once in a while, I think we're just going to start incorporating some lists, and let us talk about some of our favorite games at each other or with each other. And for this episode, I thought it'd just be easy. Let's talk about a genre that I don't think we actually talk about all that much on the show. I don't think it's either one of our favorite genres. but it's an important one for the history of video games, and that is first-person shooters.
I think that's one that I've certainly grown further from.
Yeah.
Or I guess I should let me preface that. I think that I've grown further away from competitive multiplayer FPS. I love a FPS single player story. I like that a whole lot.
I agree, but I also feel like the more games I play, the fewer first person shooters I'm picking up. Regardless of their multiplayer versus single player stuff.
Totally.
So we'll have that conversation, and I think that'll be fun. Bobby's got a top 5, I got a top 5. We'll see where we mix and match on some of that, and maybe we'll also talk a little bit about the genre itself and what compels us to it or what doesn't compel us to it, and just have a nice little conversation about that. But before we do that, let's have ourselves a little check-in. And Bobby, have you been playing any new and or old video games in the last week?
I see that you had it on the list, so I figured I would hitch my wagon to the SteamWorld Heist 2. I want to, before we go into SteamWorld Heist 2, can I just give a really quick little update on something SteamWorld adjacent?
Sure.
It's going to warm your heart.
Okay.
I got my nephew hooked on SteamWorld Heist this past weekend.
Hell yeah.
So I showed him on my phone the original, and because he's a iPad kid, he's young, he's grown up with that. He has a Switch, and his dad brought the Switch with him, and we downloaded SteamWorld Heist 2 on a Switch, and dude, he was just murking those fools. Headshots.
That's great.
He thought it was the coolest thing. He really, really loved the voices they use when they talk. He thought that was hysterical. But I had a great moment hanging out with my nephew, showing him SteamWorld Heist, and
that's awesome. And they've got so many great difficulty options for that, like even customizable difficulty options, which I don't think the first game had. I know it had options, but I don't think it had you can customize how much damage outside of the battles that you take, like in the submarine stuff, or you can really get granular with some of those things, which is really cool, especially for younger gamers who might not be used to this kind of game, but they still like the way the robots talk or seeing something explode, and they have that option to still be able to engage with it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, man, I'm having a great time with it still. I'm chugging right along. I'm in a pretty open spot. I feel like it really kind of blew up in the area I'm at, and I think I'm up to 7 crewmates maybe. 7, I think.
I think I'm around there too. I kind of put it down for a little bit because I had some other stuff going on, but I'm still having a really, really good time with SteamWorld Heist 2. I maxed out a couple characters for their first classes, so now I'm able to take some of their max class bonuses and put them into new classes. I had to figure out something for my sniper to do. I was like, oh, I maxed out my sniper. Where the fuck am I supposed to put my sniper? I love sniping so much. So I had to swap some stuff.
Yeah, what are you doing for them? Because I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, I ended up putting her in Reaper, I think.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Because it felt like it made sense. It had some nice bonuses. I'd also briefly put her into Engineer at one point, so I get the deployable cover, which is so good for basically any class. But it was really great for a sniper. I can just snipe from anywhere because I can always put up this big shield because it's a free action.
That's a great call.
But even as a Reaper, it's really nice because you run so far ahead. Yeah. And then you can just lay down cover wherever you are and take your shots. So I think they've done some really cool stuff with the class blending. I know last week I talked about how it feels like, from a Fire Emblem perspective, I've seen games like Fire Emblem Awakening go, you'll go into that class, you can get this skill, and then you go into that class, so you can get that skill. It's like, okay, but all your characters end up kind of being the same at the very end because you've just picked up all the 4 really good skills on basically everybody, and I think there's potentially going to be some of that here, and you do get a little differences with some of the personal abilities that they have, that each of the characters has, and that helps you to kind of put them down specific paths that you might want to maximize them on. But yeah, I'm having a real good time, and I'll tell you, the class that I was using the least was the Brawler. And it might be my favorite class now. I got the big girl. I got the
Rosie.
Yeah. Is her name Rosie? I think somebody else might have it. Maybe she's Rosie. Maybe that is right.
She
But
has
yeah,
like two
she's
names. She's huge though. She's awesome.
yeah, she's got like a big pink armor and like a sailor cap. And I immediately took that off and put like a spike helmet on her. And I just gave her the big axe, and then she's like her personal skill reflects some damage back
Yeah.
when somebody hits her. And then I gave her, we talked about this last week too, I gave her like the voodoo doll that does even more of that.
Oh yeah.
So anybody touches her, they immediately take 4 damage. So she just kind of runs into a space. I also have her like having the ability to heal when she gets kills.
Yeah.
So she just kind of runs in, trashes somebody, gets some health back. Everybody fires at her. They all die or get close to dying. And anybody who's left, she just goes up and knocks them on the head and takes a little bit more health back.
That's very broken.
Yeah, there was one mission specifically where you couldn't break any of the ice crystals that were around the place, and it really sucked for anybody who had a gun. Yeah, especially one where you couldn't aim the gun. Yeah, I was like, I how the fuck am I supposed to do this one? It seems tough. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can. If you just have the one with the melee weapon, they don't need to do anything. They just run right in, and they'll never hit any of the ice blocks. And it was the absolute easiest mission. Awesome. Once you kind of puzzled that out, and I think that was a really cool part of the game of SteamWorld Dig 2 had a lot of this too, where they had those kind of challenge areas where if you just didn't have the right piece of equipment on, it could feel really hard. But then if you changed your perspective a little bit and got the right equipment and did the thing, you'd go, oh, I figured out how to do this. It's easy now. And I really enjoyed that. And I think, while there aren't exactly the same kinds of puzzles that you got from SteamWorld Dig 2, there are still some kind of challenge missions where you do get to have a little bit of that customizability and kind of puzzle things out to get to a better result.
I don't know what the name of the hat is. It's like a rainbow hat that has the propeller on it. I'm talking about.
Yeah, the propeller beanie.
I put that on the engineer that we like.
Yeah,
it's very good on the engineer. I recommend that.
So that's from like the parlay mission, right? Did you get the other hat from that one too?
I think I got all of them. What was the other one?
The gold pompadour.
Oh yeah.
From yeah. Like I immediately had to get that. I was like, I don't care if I die. I want that hat.
Yep, the golden pompadour rules. It's very good.
Yeah, game's great. I'm enjoying that a lot.
I'm having so much fun. It's easily one of my favorite things this year, without a doubt.
Yep, definitely.
Chase, I've been a busy bee.
Okay.
I've got some games to tell you about that I think you might be interested in. First one up is Dredge, the Iron Rig.
I've heard of Dredge. You've played Dredge many times.
Yeah,
that's not new.
If you're not familiar with Dredge, that is put out by Black Salt Games. They've got if you buy all the DLC, it now gives you a loading screen that says Dredge Complete Edition, which they put out 2, and I've gotten all that stuff. Currently on sale, 35% off on Steam, normally $25. This is that Eldritch horror fishing game with like some Tetris and inventory management and spooky stuff. It's not overly spooky. Like I think if you don't like that stuff, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not horror. It's just
it's
unsettling.
It's dark. Like Edgar Allan Poe dark. The Iron Rig's interesting. It's a really cool. So the first DLC was called the Pale Reach, I think. And it was like more of like an Arctic area that you were being hunted by a ghoulish narwhal, and that was fun in itself. And you got a new ability to break through ice with your boat. This one, you start to see these boxes out in the ocean, and as you pick them up, you're like, I don't know where this goes. And all of a sudden, you see this huge oil rig. To be brief, this one's really cool because you're upgrading a place instead of your boat. And so you're adding like a science lab, you're adding a factory into it. And this is cool because this DLC, they're like, hey, we're going to take all the good shit you have and you can upgrade it to a different version that's stronger, faster, better. And it's like all your fishing gear, there's like elevated versions of it. And when they go
So
to
they played Metal Gear Solid 5 is what you're saying.
yes,
Like forward operating bases and upgraded equipment. Got it. Let's do it.
Let's fucking go. And it's neat because they also let you upgrade some of your other abilities. Whenever they start to drill into the water, it fractures and like this really creepy aura starts to come up. And basically you're having to go and find certain species from this that require more upgraded gear. So this is actually about 3 times as long as the first DLC. The first DLC was like a 2-hour deal. This is about a 6-hour DLC. Your mileage may vary depending on what it is, but it's more dredge for better or worse, and I think it's really for better. This feels great. That game's very cool. You should check out Dredge, the Iron Rig DLC. I think the DLC is $12 maybe. You can buy everything for the game, art books, soundtracks, all that, the complete set. Normally $56.94, on sale for $37.55 at the time of this recording.
Not bad.
Another game I checked out is one that I think you're curious about, at least based off of our preview episode, and that's a game called Castaway. This came out on August 16th. It is made by Canary Games, I think, just spelled differently. It's on Switch, Xbox, Steam, PS5, PS4, $8. Chase, this is, by your definition, a very short game. And they don't hide that back. There's 3 dungeons you go through. There's 2 modes in the story for this. There is the actual campaign, which you can literally beat in probably an hour, maybe 2 tops, if you are going through it. It is unapologetically Zelda. I mean, it is. You get a hook shot.
Yeah, we looked at it like right from the like tile sets. They look like they were ripped completely out of Link's Awakening. Which, you know, as long as Nintendo is cool with that, I ain't gonna tell them.
Dude, I don't know how this. I don't know. There's been a lot of Zelda likes. This is Zelda. I mean,
this is very alike. Yeah.
This is fucking Zelda. All that to be said, there is a mode after you complete the game called the Tower, and it looks to be a run base meets some of the mechanics of like Vampire Survivor. So as you're going through this tower, you're ascending up and taking on more enemies. They drop coins this time. So when you kill an enemy, they drop a handful of coins. And as you pick those coins up, that's leveling up your XP bar. And when you hit that, you get 3 choices like you would in Vampire Survivor on something to upgrade for your run.
Okay.
So while the game's story is short, they've added some cool stuff in with the tower. It's a very simple game, but I think it can go on your Switch. It's cheap. It's short. It is Zelda. There's a lot of good things here it's doing. Unfortunately, because the internet sucks, it has gotten a lot of negative reviews for its length. People are saying that they're charging way too much money for a game this short. It's $8, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, I know we use this comparison, or it's just generally used, but think about how much you pay for a movie and how much time do you get out of a movie? Is like maybe a couple hours, and you're paying more than $8 if you're going to the theater. Like I don't mind $8 for a fun experience that I could tackle in a weekend and just be happy with. That sounds like a great deal for me.
Yeah, man, I think you should play it. Like, I don't know if it'll make, a top list for you anywhere, but it's really well done. I love the pixel art. I think that's great. The music's great. The sound design's great. Check it out. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it. I know that I told you in the preview episode, and we've brought it up before. One of my New Year's resolutions is to play and beat A Link to the Past this year, a game that I've played a lot of, but have never really sat down and played through. And I'm sure I could play both, but there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to get like a Zelda fix right now and then be done with it and not feel the need to play A Link to the Past. I want to just sit down and play A Link to the Past. So if I can get through that and still want a little bit more, happy to play through this game as well. But I know I'm gonna like it, whether it's this year or next year or whenever I play it. So I'm gonna plop down the $8. I'm gonna buy this game.
Hell yeah. All right, last thing I'm gonna talk to you about, is, you know, it's a sick thing, Chase.
Yep, you are a sick man. I know that. Why this time?
Shapes 2 came out. This came
Okay.
out on August 15th. This is made by, is it Tobspur? Tobspr? Tobspur Games. You
Sure.
had a very visceral reaction whenever we covered this in the preview.
Did I? Oh, okay. I'm seeing screenshots now. I understand. Yes.
Chase, what are you seeing in the screenshots?
Well, I just looked up shapes, so I guess I'm seeing shapes 1 here. But I'm seeing conveyor belts. I'm seeing
Yeah.
factories.
Yeah.
I'm seeing lots of things being fed into other things to turn into different things to go into other things. And now I'm tired.
This might be the sickest I've ever been.
God damn it.
This is is it my favorite factory game? It's too early to tell. I think that's still probably Satisfactory, but this is a really interesting take on the genre because it is just shapes, but it's not
so it's not just shapes. Just Shapes and Beats is a different video game.
This is what's weird about this one is you've got a subset of tools on your conveyor belt. You have a rotation tool and a cut tool. These can all be upgraded. So I'm only going to be talking kind of entry point here. So if you're an advanced player, carry on about your business. The big deal here is,
God, I wish I was an advanced player.
I know, you will be after this. So
no.
As you start the game, you've got 2 shapes that you can produce, a square and a circle. And
sure, classic
time,
shapes.
Each time these shapes come through, it is cut into 4 quadrants, but it's a whole piece. So there's just a line. So if you have a square, it looks like 4 small squares. If you have a circle, it honestly looks like, if you remember back in the day, the game Simon, where you had to like match the colors and sound.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's
like
a pizza.
It's a pizza. 4 slices of pizza. So what happens is you've got a cutter, a rotator, and then you have a stacker. And this is a game about missions. So it's like, hey, we need 720 of 1/2 square, 1/2 of circle.
This reminds me a little bit of the what was like the alphabet game that was like this too, where you had to take the shapes of the letters and break them into other letters.
Something. It was like the factory where you only had certain characters that you had to bend and shape. And it's honestly that was what Shapes is for letters.
Yeah, I'll look it up while you keep talking about this one.
There's 4 areas that you're feeding these shapes from. So you have 2 square factories and you have 2 circle factories. And you have to use your tools to figure out how these things work. So there's a verticality to this factory game. So if you have a stacker, whatever you put in the top will fall down onto the bottom shape. And so a lot of these will say like, hey, we want a top right corner, bottom piece of the square, top piece is a slice of pizza. And so you have to figure out how to bring these shapes together and rotate them the right way so that when they go into the stacker, it will drop out and be producing the stacked item. It can be pretty complex. One of the coolest things about this, though, is the quality of life tool set. And this is what I'll spend a little bit of time talking on. They have built in, basically, if you hold down shift and left click, that is how you're selecting items in your factory. If you hold down shift and right click, you can do bulk delete. If you have a bunch of your items selected, I can just Control C, copy it, and Control V and paste it. And then I can rotate. So if I have these 4 areas and I'm like, hey, I figured out how exactly to cut this into the 4 pieces to rotate it and do that, I can just copy, paste, and mirror across the way. Now I've got 2 factories I've built. I can tell you this is one of the coolest factory games I've played this early into it. It's currently at an overwhelmingly positive on Steam, 10 out of 10.
Of course it is. All those sickos love it.
Listen, there's dozens of us. But
5 out of 5 sickos agree. This game's great.
It's very sick and very good. But yeah, this one should be socially distancing because it's very sick. And
also Word Factory with the Y, an I instead of the Y.
Yeah, because the I is the shape that you start with on that one.
Yes, yeah.
This is, I think we talked about this on the preview. The last thing I'll say is this is kind of a Risk of Rain to Risk of Rain 2 level of upgrade.
Yeah.
If you've seen pictures of Shapes 1, it was pretty flat. This is gorgeous. It looks great, runs great. Very, very cool. No controller support. This is a mouse and keyboard only game right now. It is early access. I will say that Shapes, the first Shapes game, is on mobile now. So if you're looking for, like, conceptually, they're very similar. And Shapes on my iPad was a great time. So if you have a tablet or a phone, check it out there. So yeah, for me, Chase,
I refuse, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I'm probably halfway through Dredge. I beat Castaway. Shapes is going to take a long time, and I think I'm probably close to like 18 or 19 hours in SteamWorld Heist. So I did download, and I'll play it tonight and talk about it next week. Black Myth Wukong. I went ahead and picked that one up. I'm really excited to check that one out, and nice. I'm hoping you can maybe help me with that game a little bit from the lore and mythology aspect of it. Maybe.
Again, I've not read Journey to the West, so I don't know much about the monkey guy outside of, you know, that's where Goku comes from. But yeah, I don't know, maybe. Yeah. And Bobby, I will do you a favor by not giving you any update on SD Gundam G Generation Cross Rays.
Are you still playing it though?
Absolutely, I am.
Are you liking it?
I mean, yes, even though I know it's bad, but I love it.
But you're liking it.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Cool. I'm going to send you a game offline that I think you will dig.
Okay.
And I'll talk about it next week as well.
Okay. Also, I haven't forgotten about mobile golf. I know that is my game that I must play this month for the wheel.
Have you fired it up yet at all?
I loaded it up just to make sure that the ROM was working on my analog pocket. That's the only way you can play it in America. So I don't mind saying that I got a ROM for that one. So yeah, I know it loads up well and it'll work just fine. I just need to play the game, which you know, I'm very much looking forward to. I know I'm going to love it. It's just Mario Golf. But without the Mario, and I will take that. So I hope to have an update about that probably next week or maybe 2 weeks from now. But it'll get done.
Also, like, let's just call it out really quick. We're on a Monday. I should have mentioned that earlier. We typically aren't.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday. This is typically when we do our casual Monday stream. I'm going to be seeing the Smashing Pumpkins on Wednesday night, and so I'll miss our show. But yeah, if you're listening to this audio only, etc., there's that. And then we'll have some more updates to share at the end of this episode on kind of the future episodes for the next few weeks too.
Yeah, so we're not going to have any information about what was it, like opening night live or whatever's going on at Gamescom and some of that shit.
Right? Is that tomorrow?
I believe that's tomorrow. So we'll talk about that next week probably, and give some updates if any are worth it there.
If you're around on Friday, this is no pressure to you, but I'm going to play SteamWorld on stream. If you wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about it, if there's something cool, like we can just shoot the shit, but there's no pressure for you to be there for that.
Okay, we'll see.
Well, what about this deep dive, man? How you feeling about this?
I felt like this was incredibly hard. So this was come up with your top 5 first-person shooter games, and we're just going to talk about them. And I'm sure we'll have a little bit of overlap. I think if I had to guess, well, actually, I took the one that I thought we would definitely have on there together. I took that one off. So we might have one. We might have one. We might have one overlap. This? Okay, please.
I said to myself, Chase has asked you to come up with a list of 5 of your favorite FPS games. So,
yes.
Okay, done. Start writing, and the first 5 you put down is what you have to stick to.
Wow, I could not do that. I could definitely not do that.
I'll tell you, fucked myself here, but I wanted you to know that's how I said this is what you're going to do. So what you get from me.
Do you feel like you put that in order? Like, is your first game your first game?
I think Subconsciously, I will tell you, yeah. Like
if you want to reorder that list, you're welcome to in this brief time.
No,
if you'd like.
No,
okay,
I'm going with this.
Okay, because we'll build up like we do for Game of the Year. We'll build up from 5 to 1. I will tell you now. All I told Bobby was top 5 first-person shooter games, top 5 FPS. So take that as you will. I think this is Game of the Year thoughts here. These are our philosophy going into this. So like you can put whatever 5 games you wanted to, and it's not like our categories where I'd go like, well, Bobby, that's not a first-person shooter. Fuck that. It's your list. You get to make it however you want. I will say for my list, I tried to put a couple little restrictions on myself, and one of those was I didn't count Portal as a first-person shooter game for myself. That would have been too easy. I feel like it's a puzzle game. It's not really about the shooting, so I took that one off. Even though absolutely it should have been on here if you do count it.
I did not for the same reasons. Just FYI.
Okay. The other one, which might be a little more gray, is I did not put Fallout New Vegas on here because I thought that is, while it is a shooter that is in first person, that's so much more an RPG, and I don't think the shooting is very good in that game to the point that I would not call it a good first person shooter. I would call it a very good video game. I would call it a great RPG. But if we're talking about what are my favorite shooters, I don't feel like Fallout New Vegas goes in there, even though taking the game as a whole, I feel like it would absolutely make a list.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had some strong stipulations too, because like I was starting to think about like I didn't include it, but I thought I really like Firewatch, as you know.
Sure.
But that's not a first-person shooter. That's just like a walking
I don't think you
sim.
fire. You throw you throw
maybe
something at those kids. Don't you throw the radio into the lake? That's what you do.
So like
that's about as first-person shootery as it gets in that game.
Like Edith Finch, like the Unfinished Swan, things of that nature. Like very cool
like I didn't count
games.
Skyrim. Like you can use a bow in Skyrim, but that's not a first-person shooter. Come on.
No, like I'm literally going with like. It doesn't have to be a competitive shooter by any stretch, but I'm going with first person. You are shooting guns primarily as your focus on that.
All right. Well, why don't do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. My 5th favorite first person shooter game. This one's also a little questionable, but it counts enough for me. And that is Star Wars Battlefront 2, the 2005 game. Definitely not the 2011 game. 2011? No.
I think I don't know why I think more third person with that.
Because it is. But you can shift from first and third. And I played that game in first person quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a little fuzzy because you could play it either way, but I played a lot of first person of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I just love that game so much. I love the space battles that they added in the second game over the first. Getting to be on like the Corellian cruiser or whatever the fuck, and jumping into an X-wing and flying over to the Star Destroyer and going inside and then getting out of your ship and shooting dudes and going in and blowing up the shield generator from the inside. Like that stuff is so cool. I know that I've seemed like a Star Wars hater over the recent past, and I think that's with good reason. I'm sure you heard that they canceled the Acolyte after one season.
They did. I did also hear that
merciful.
Andor season 2 will end moments before the opening of Rogue One, where he's meeting that guy in the alley.
Sure. Okay.
So, and each episode's going to skip ahead by a year, I think.
Interesting. Okay. So. But that's like one of the things I just really love about Battlefront 2 is that it gives you a lens into so many different Star Wars worlds.
Dude,
it doesn't immediately put you in the shoes of a Jedi. You do get the ability to become some of those hero units as you play, but I like the idea that I can just be a droideka, or I can be a clone trooper, or I can be a stormtrooper as you play through and kind of see from a different level than you normally would see from Star Wars. I just had a really, really good time with it, and I am so bummed that they never ended up making a Battlefront 3, and the
Yeah.
new Battlefronts are just not exactly what I was looking for.
They're just battle. What's the not Battlefront, but
they're Battlefield. They're Battlefield
they're
with a Star Wars
Battlefield.
skin over
Yeah,
it,
that's all
and
it is.
that's not really what I was looking for.
No.
But that 2005 Battlefront 2, that's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, man. I put Far Cry 3 as my 5.
That was like an honorable mention idea for me. Why Far Cry 3 over the other ones? I know you played a lot of those.
I've played all of them. And I think that the modern, like, while it's the rumors are that they've completely gone to a fresh perspective for the next like Far Cry 7 game. I really like Far Cry 4. Actually, I think some of the traversal in that is better than 3. But I think the story in 3, I think the freshness of what 3 was at the time, like, really stands out to me, because every other one of these games is just kind of a reskinned version of 3. But there was something about just like you could go in smooth and quiet and use your weapons and upgrade your weapons and take out these little encampments. I loved the hunting aspect of like, I can go and get things to come back and upgrade things. Like, I really like that in a game. I think the writing and the pacing going from like a very cinematic, like first person cinematic cutscenes where you're just like those really close up faces talking to them. I thought that was great. But the vehicle
you liked having first person sex with that tribal lady.
There was other things besides that. That's all I remember.
Well, it's that and Voss, like having you in a cage and going the definition of insanity.
I also thought it was, I mean, it's dumb, but it's like, oh, I just got shot. Oh, I just got bit by a shark. Oh, let me pull this bullet out of my arm and heal myself really quick.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff's really silly, but I think the weapon diversity was cool. I think this was, it borderline on some RPG stuff. Like, I don't know like how deep into that it would go compared to others, but from a first person shooter, I think it felt pretty good, all things considered. And
like I played some Far Cry 2, and I know like that's the critical darling of like the people who are really into video games, who are like, oh, I like all the crunchy systems of that. And I could understand where they were coming from, but it also just felt like a lot of busy work. I took over this, took over this place and freed it, and now I come back 5 minutes later and people are back on it again, so I've got to redo this shit. And I'm like, come on.
God, that guy.
And I was like, man, I like this game, but also it just, and your guns could jam, and there was all that stuff, and Far Cry 3 really like softened those edges, and I think they just made it really feel good to play. Plus, it had all the ridiculousness of the skydiving and that Skrillex song when you're burning the weed field and shit like that. It's it was a really cool one. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I've had that feeling again playing Far Cry 4 or any of the other Far Cries. I mean, Blood Dragon, but Blood Dragon is a thing for Far Cry 3, so it kind of counts for that one.
6 is the first one I never finished.
Yeah.
I really bounced off of it, and it's fine. It's just boring compared. And I think the 5th one is where they really started to lose me, because it got very bad story-wise. Mechanically, it's great. Also, I didn't call this out. This is a really good fuck around with a buddy game. This is one of the best fuck around with a buddy. Play this game, go out and do some.
Did 3 have multiplayer?
I'll check on that. I don't think it did.
If it did, I think it was really limited in how you could play it. I know later ones definitely. 5, I know for sure, was absolutely like, hey, play with your friends and fuck around and do whatever you want. But
Far Cry 3 co-op gameplay, PS3 Let's Play. So
yeah, I do kind of remember it having some multiplayer stuff, but I think it was really limited in like when they could join you or how far they could be from you or something like that. Whereas later ones would just be like, you can go anywhere and do anything.
I remember Johnny and I, we played through 4 and 5. We played through a lot of 5, and it was drop in, drop out. Like, you could get in there and do that no problem at all. So it was really cool, man. Like, I think a lot of Far Cry 3. That's my 5th.
Nice. I'm making an executive decision here, and I'm switching my third and fourth picks.
Ooh.
Final chance to do that, and I think I'm happier with this list.
Okay.
That makes my number four Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
I I was really close to just putting the orange box up here just so I could be like, well,
Honestly,
kind of Portal. It's Portal, right? Like Portal. I don't really care about Team Fortress 2 all that much,
I
but
had so much fun with Team Fortress 2. I loved that back in the day.
yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, it's but that was all a multiplayer shooter, and I think at that
Mhm.
point I was
Over
playing
it.
Call of Duty or Halo for my multiplayer shooters, and I didn't really want another one of those.
Sure.
But what I did want was to play Half-Life 2 because I'd played Half-Life 2 on the original Xbox, which not the best port of Half-Life 2,
Yeah.
but with the Xbox 360, the orange box came with the episode 1 and episode 2 for Half-Life 2, and those were the first times I was getting an opportunity to play those because I wasn't playing PC games at the time, and to an extent still aren't. Um, but Half-Life 2 for me is just it's so inventive of a
Sure.
first person shooter, in that it is less about the shooting. I think the shooting is one of the weaker parts of the game, honestly, but it's the amount of stuff that they put in. I know like Valve treated it like a tech demo in a lot of ways, in the
As
way
they
that
do. Yeah.
but like with the vehicles, with the alternate fires, with the enemy AI, with the puzzle solving, with the gravity gun and all the stuff you got to do with that. And it felt it feels like a game with a lot of ideas into it, and also a lot of like separate parts where this is the part where we go to, we don't go to Ravenholm, and now we're in Ravenholm, and it turns into a horror game for a little bit, and you're using the gravity gun with the buzz saws and taking the zombies out. But and now it's the antlion part where you aren't really shooting at all. You have the antlion gene thing,
Yeah.
pheromones that you're throwing at people and killing them with ant lions, or now it's the fan boat part, and so I didn't like the fan boat part that much, but but like the idea that it was broken up with all of these different things. Oh, here's the part where you get the RPG, and you're shooting it at all the big legged dudes that are walking
Yeah.
around
100%.
ATST style. And there's just so many different parts of that game that I never felt bored because there was always another cool set piece kind of thing coming for
Certainly ahead of
the
its
next part.
time.
Yeah, definitely. I think it influenced video games greatly in a lot of the things that it did. And I still just find it to be a really solid video game all around. I know there are some parts that people find boring, but I never got there, and I liked episode 1, but I really liked episode 2. And I was one of those people who tried to get that fucking gnome in the car and get him into that goddamn rocket at the end. Like that's how much I loved playing that video game, is that I wanted to do all the dumb bullshit that they put in there, especially because that was like achievement time. So like we gotta attack those chivos. So Half-Life 2 is a really special game for me in that sense.
I think that's fair. That's a great call out. My fourth one here is Deep Rock Galactic, and
I figured this game would be on there.
yeah. This is the game that like if anytime I see on like hey, anybody know of a great co-op game or a great multiplayer shooter, or this is my favorite game to tell people about, because I think it is one of the best games for people of any genre really to come together. It's a very approachable game. It's got a very easy entry point, but I think it's one that you can really go pretty far with on like tinkering and building your class out. I have never had a bad time playing this game. I always enjoy myself. There's always some zany bullshit happening, and the shooting's honestly well enough for what it is. Like, it's not the main focus of the game. There's other things you're doing, from playing more into the classes of the dwarfs you have here. But I think it's really, really cool, and the support from the community and the developers working together to just make a special thing. It seems to work really well, and as this year proved, translating it over to a new genre has been great. And there's another first person game in the series that should be coming out in 2025, which I'm very curious about. but this is a really, really remarkable video game.
Yeah, I know you and Johnny played it a lot on Friday nights.
That was like a staple.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Like, this is just theorizing for you. I don't even want any theorizing. I just want a yes or no. Do you think that is the newest game that will show up on either of our lists tonight? A game's from 2018, if it helps you.
Let me check one thing.
The answer to your question is 2017. As you check one thing, the answer is 2017.
I think mine's 20. I'm seeing 2016 for this one.
Okay, well, maybe we'll have a conversation about whatever that one is. I think
maybe 3 might be the same for us.
We'll see.
What's your 3?
If it's 2016, yeah, then it almost certainly is. I don't know that this game came out in 2016, but absolutely, it's super hot. It's super hot. Super hot. So fucking good.
That's my third.
It's the most innovative game I've played in years. That's
an innovative shooter.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one changed it up, man.
It really did. It get kind of, not in the same way that Half-Life did, but in a different way that it's a shift on the traditional shooter, and I think it makes you play it in a way that is not just Call of Duty. And that's not to say anything bad about Call of Duty. There are a lot of Call of Duty games that I played. None of them are going to show up on my list. But I've enjoyed many Calls of Duties in the past. Yeah. But Super Hot really did feel like something different. And the idea that, time only moves when you move, and you get to feel like you're in the Matrix by just making slow movements as bullets whiz past you, and the puzzly nature that you got out of a first person shooter like that. It's just really cool. And the story stuff was okay too, but like just the idea that there are these red low poly men running at you, and you get to just like cock your gun, and the way they shatter, like the polygons shatter, and it's so fucking cool. The whole time I'm playing it, I've just thought, it's so cool.
Well, it's incredibly simple in its execution. And I also think that this game just has like the juice from all angles. Like it's got a great fourth wall breaking story. It's incredibly meta. It borrows from anybody that's been paying attention to pulp culture for the last several decades. Like you're going through the lobby of the Matrix. You're up on the rooftop for all, literally you can pick pretty much any, where was the movie that had an awesome shootout, and we're going to replicate that here. Yeah. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this element of it, but I think playing this game in VR is an absolute treat.
So I did want to mention that, like the VR game is a completely separate game from Super Hot, and yet it's also really good. I am an avowed VR hater, and that is the closest a game has ever gotten me to feeling like VR might be the future of something. Hey, Astrobot was fun. Playing Tetris Effect in VR was cool, but it wasn't until playing Super Hot VR that I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like and it's because it was able to build on the ideas presented in Super Hot so well. Like that VR game is really, really good, independent of the original Super Hot.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's my third as well. Let's just circle around to your number 2.
Some great number 3s. I'm glad I switched it. I really like Half-Life 2. I feel like that's more like a classic pick. Yeah. But in my heart, Super Hot was just so good. I should go back and play Super Hot again sometime.
I agree. It's great.
Real good. My number 2 is Halo Combat Evolved. You had to know Halo was going to show up too. Here. So that's interesting. I want to hear why we picked our individual Halos, because I picked Halo 1 mostly because I played it the most. It's a game that I had a GameCube at the time. I was playing Smash Brothers and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and things like that. And it wasn't until I had a friend come over and they brought their Xbox and we were doing a sleepover thing, and they brought their Xbox and I played a tiny bit of Munch's Odyssey, and I went, that's not really for me. And then he had this game called Halo, and I played that. And I was like, holy shit, this thing is so cool. Like these enemies are cool. The way that the AI is moving and they're actually using cover is cool. These weapons, the vehicles, being able to get into something like a Ghost, or in Halo 1, there's like one mission where you get into a Banshee, and flying around in the Banshee was so cool. Having that moment, I can't remember which mission it is. It's kind of the snowy level, where you get all the Marines around you and you get into the big Scorpion tank, and the Marines are like jump onto the sides of it with you, and you're all just moving through and having a blast as you just explode Covenant, and you hear the Marines and their barks of like, yeah, fuck them or whatever.
Yeah.
It was so incredible for me, and I remember that was the time where I was like, I need to get me one of these Xboxes, and I had a fantastic time playing Halo, the original one, just over and over and over again. I've played every Halo until this newest one, and still there's something about Halo 1 that just feels the best to me. Why'd you pick Halo 2?
I picked Halo 2 for a few reasons. First and most importantly probably was the dual wielding of weapons. I really thought that was cool. I also like the shield mechanic of 2 compared to the health and shield of Combat Evolved. I think the vehicles, there's some cooler vehicles in 2. I really enjoyed those elements of it. I thought that was a lot of fun. Energy swords was, at the time I was just like, holy fucking shit, this thing is awesome. And I think the inclusion of Xbox Live kind of being tied to Halo 2 was a really big like sea change for me. But just like overall, like it was more polished, it looked better. I also kind of have this thinking of your favorite Halo is the one that you played first, and Halo 2 was my first time playing it, so I went back to Halo, but it felt a little old at the time. I appreciated the story, but by that point in time, everybody was just so like enamored with Halo 2. But
yeah, I mean, and that's the game. I mean, you mentioned Xbox Live, and there were LAN things that you could do with Halo 1, and that was also fun. I remember playing a lot of those maps. I loved having 8 people, and we were playing the big Sidewinder map and sniping and doing cool stuff with that. But yeah, being able to just jump online and play Halo 2 with a bunch of people was awesome. And I made some friends off of Xbox Live, and we played Halo 2 together. And I remember we were there when they were about to shut the servers down for original Xbox Live, and we were hanging out. We're like, they got to wait for us, man. They can't shut this off until we're gone. And we played a handful of hours going back to that. Like the zombies mode that was like a community created thing.
Totally.
Was awesome. I remember getting that separate disc of the map pack, and bringing that, and if you didn't have the map pack, like, what the hell are you doing, man? You gotta have the map pack. It's
a huge deal.
It was a hell of a thing, and I also liked Halo 3. I played a lot of Halo 3. But I don't think it had the sauce from a multiplayer perspective that Halo 2 did, for sure.
Life was a lot simpler at that point in time. And chat's calling out here, Zombies on Foundation was the best. That was pretty damn good.
Absolutely, yeah. You just get people to pile up stuff in front of the doors and just hope to God that you can hold the fort down. And then you'd run out of ammo, and somebody would have to go out and try to get ammo, and that would be the time you pounce. Foundation was a hell of a map. I also really like Halo Reach. Like, I'd put like an honorable mention for Halo Reach.
Halo Reach was awesome.
As a person who read those fucking books, There was something kind of cool about seeing, it's not one for one with the books, but seeing some of the stuff that was going on there and going like, oh, I know what's about to happen here. That's interesting. I liked the way that they switched up or had like a team of Spartans and using the Spartan 3s and Spartan 2s, and
the designs were great.
Reach was a big deal for me as well. But when I think back of it, it's got to be Combat Evolved.
All right, man.
It's time for number ones. Obviously, there's 1,814 reasons why this is number one. It's Destiny 2. It's it's a game I love. It's a game I hate. It's a game I've been living clean off of for the last 8 months.
You never played the final shape. That's insane.
I haven't. Yeah, I didn't finish the fight. I don't know what happens. I haven't even looked up what happens. But we've spilled so much ink talking about it over the many years we've had this podcast.
You and I bonded over that game.
Totally. I mean, the shooting is sublime. The mechanics of it are
mechanically
perfect.
I think it's the best shooter.
Absolutely. It feels so good to play, both from the shooting, both from the first person platforming in a way, like the different classes with the different ways they jump and the abilities and all the mechanics that go in there. It feels incredible to play. And I think it has some really great story moments in there as well. I mean, Destiny 1 very well noted how slapdash that story came together and how it got rewritten.
Totally.
But Destiny 2, I think there are some really cool moments where it has some really impactful stuff in it, and it's just so evocative with all of these different races, the Vex and I forgot it, the Fallen. I wanted to say Elixni, which that's a little too eyebrow. I just think so much of that game is so fucking cool, and it was really my identity for a long while.
I would agree with you. Like, I played a lot of it, and I've really been pretty removed from that series for a few. I think I got the last. What was the one that had Strand in it?
That was that one.
That was like the last one I got, and I was fine. I've had a very
Lightfall.
trouble. Yeah, I played Lightfall. I've been tempted by the final shape, because again, I had put in every season, not to the degree that you did. I mean, earlier I was playing this nonstop. I was leveling up 3 characters at once. Destiny is an incredibly important video game to me, but it's ultimately one that I felt I outgrew, or it outgrew me. And either way, it's okay. And when I say this, it's just because it became something where I knew I was on a treadmill. And like here, I like that shit. We talked about Shapes too. I love automation. I love task-based things.
If there's anybody here who loves treadmills, it's Bobby P.
It's me. I mean, not in real life, obviously, but
no, of course not. Terrible.
I think the thing for me is that every time I went to play Destiny, it was like, wait, I got to do all this shit again. All right, hang on, what's this? And then I wasn't chasing the same meta. But like chat's even saying and I agree with chat. I've heard nothing but positive things for the final shape, and
I know they brought a bunch of classic weapons back, and the story stuff's supposed to be interesting.
Is enough to get me back. I'll tell you that much.
Sure,
right now.
yeah.
That fucking gun is so good. Holy shit.
They brought a bunch of stuff back, and I still watch a couple of Destiny YouTubers every once in a while, mostly just to see like a new weapon and how it's being used. But I still feel like there was something more special when they had the when it felt like, here's a piece of content, it's all there, you play it now. And when Luke Smith would say, go and play another video game for a while, we'll be back back when we have a new thing. And that is just the way I liked playing that. And I realized that is not the way to make continued growth. And if you're doing a live service game, you have to do this seasonal model that they eventually went to. But I think there is something that kind of lost a bit of the charm when they went away from that model that they'd been doing before. And while I still continued to be on that treadmill for a very long time, there was definitely that feeling of, oh, I'm on a treadmill instead of I'm playing a new chapter of this story that I love.
Yeah, man.
But even still, like I don't want to end this with like, oh, here's some crap about Destiny 2. No. I love this video game. It is I believe it is the game I have spent the most time in of any video game ever, and it's probably not even that close. And I just love Destiny 2 so much, and I've had so many great times playing Destiny 2.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna guess that's not your number one, Bobby.
It's not. What is my number one?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's the only one that I think might. It's my honorable mention. Is it Perfect Dark?
No.
Okay. Is it GoldenEye?
No.
Then I have no idea. Go for it.
Titanfall 2.
Ah, sure. Of course. Yeah.
I think this is one of the best campaigns of any shooter I've played. I think the game feel, I think getting in and out of the big fucking bots, just the bombast that comes from that to the level design this is the game that made me think, Bungie might have a little competition when it comes to like gunplay, game feel. But man, there was just so much heart into this game. Like, you really felt connected to what was going on with it. I loved the Mega Man-ness of taking out the other big fucking mechs. I thought that was really cool. The grappling hook mechanics that would come into it from like a multiplayer. There was
parkour running on the walls.
Dude, like, I think I don't know what's a bigger crime, if I'm being real. And I don't want to offend anybody when I say this. I don't know if Bungie's obsession with the live service mentality to Destiny, or the fact that we feel Apex Legends is what we wanted more from that Titanfall universe. While I think Apex is fine, I'm not going to sit here and shit on it because it's just something so foreign for what I want from a video game these days.
Right.
But when I think about
two things can be true at once. Apex Legends can be a good game. I wouldn't know. I don't care about those kinds of 100%. Games, but it can be a good game. I'll be over here going like, yeah, I'm sure it is a good game. I'm not denying that. Yep. But it's also not Titanfall 3. No. And it's sad that we never got a Titanfall 3.
It's just such a bummer. And like, chat's over here lamenting with us on it too. Like, it sucks because that was such a high point, especially if you think about like Titanfall had its core group, but they expanded Titanfall 2 out further, and that came out and people are like, holy shit, this is game of the year material. And
well, the original Titanfall was multiplayer only. Like there was a story in there, but it was a story that was told at the beginning and ends of matches.
Yeah.
And for a game like that to evolve into a game with one of the best shooter campaigns ever is kind of crazy. Like, hey, that didn't have a campaign for the last one, and now it's one of the best. That's amazing.
It's like a band that got together and just made a fucking masterpiece, and they're like, hey, we're not going to tour, we're done.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm making a solo project over here. It's kind of what you want, but not what you want. You want this band back together, and like, that's all I want. Like, bring the band back together, make a Titanfall 3, and restore peace on Earth. Like, that's all you got to do. just make Titanfall 3.
I feel bad because I got to be honest, I completely forgot about Titanfall 2.
Dude, that's totally fine.
It just wasn't. It's not on my radar.
We had this awesome discussion. I'm glad. On it. We round each other out here.
I don't think it would have been tough to put that over Battlefront 2 because I would just.
Oh, sure.
There's a nostalgia to Battlefront 2 that I don't quite have with Titanfall 2, even though I know it's the superior game. But yeah, that's definitely up there. And I also mentioned Perfect Dark and GoldenEye as the other two potential number ones for you. Perfect Dark was my honorable mention. Like, that's a great one. I know, like, PC gaming's out there. It was better at the time. It's better now, but there was something special about playing a Nintendo 64, and GoldenEye was great. I played a lot of GoldenEye, but the idea of all the new stuff they added and all the weird stuff they added to Perfect Dark of it's a laptop gun. It goes on walls and it's a turret. Isn't that cool? This gun sees through walls and you can kill people through walls. Isn't that amazing? I had a really, really good time with Perfect
I would
Dark.
say if I had like an honorable mention, just off my cuff right now, I would put RoboQuest on there. If you are a fan,
Really? Okay.
dude, I fucking loved RoboQuest. If you have not played it, it does all the alt fire shit that you're talking about from Perfect Dark. It has the bombast of like a Doom early day boomer shooter. It was.
Yeah, we didn't put a Doom game on here. I very slightly considered putting the original Doom on here.
I considered 2016. I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. Chat, thanks for your participation in our conversation. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's round this out here, Chase. So we've got a little bit of a shorter week. Thank you first of all for hosting this week and taking on the deep dive. I really like our approach to just our new news segment as a gruesome twosome here. I really appreciate that.
So we might do more of these. Like I said, we're not going to do them every time we do a deep dive. I still like the way we do deep dives, and we'll look into doing more of those. But every once in a while, I like this kind of, hey, let's sit back and chill. Let's talk about our time with video games, and hey, we haven't talked about Titanfall 2 on this podcast for a long time. We haven't talked about
not since like our first year in 2016. Right?
Yeah, we haven't talked about Superhot on this podcast for a long time. So it's cool to be able to come back and remember, like, oh yeah, these were games that we really loved, and I'd love to do this with another genre or another studio or something like that. So we'll definitely do more of these over time. But I had a great time.
Seabrass is there in the chat. Say what's up to Seabrass. That's a good bot. We've had a fun week. Well, we start with our podcast. We're going to end.
It's just the week just started, Bobby. I don't know if it's a good week, but it's good so far. It's off to the right foot.
We won't be live Wednesday, which is when we traditionally record this podcast. So if you tuned in for the first time, or if you just found us, you can listen to all of our other podcasts every Friday, or any Friday for that matter, or any day of the week, because we have 388 episodes for you to pick from and get started. This Friday night,
some of them are even good.
Some of them are okay, yeah.
Maybe 5, maybe 6.
Friday, I'm going to play a little SteamWorld Heist, or I might, depending on how Black Myth Wukong goes, I might fire that up too. But I think right now, SteamWorld Heist 2 is what I'll be checking out. But we've got a YouTube channel that has some old quick looks on it. We're looking at dusting off some of those. We're very active across all social media. Threads and Twitter is kind of where we're hanging out the most right now. But we've been putting out some polls over there, tied more to like the Bob Omby channel that you can see right here or right there. But follow along, have a great time with us. And Chase, you've got even more good news for anybody who's new to our show. You do a lot more than just hang out with this beautiful face. What do you got going on?
Yeah, I've got a couple things going on. One of them is a YouTube channel. It's called ChaseK Plays, where I play some video games on the internet. Go figure. Currently, I'm playing Advance Wars 2 as part of the Advance Wars 1+2 reboot camp.
Hell of a fun.
It's been a lot of fun. I just got about 3-ish quarters of the way there. I finished off Gold Comet for the last episode that's coming out this Wednesday. So definitely check that out. And then if you like television, and who doesn't, you can go check out a podcast I do with my very good friend and friend of the show, Pierce Corshane. It's called Pilot Program.
Great artwork.
Excellent artwork done by a really great local artist named I forgot his name, but he's really good.
Yeah. ugly as shit, but pretty good at making things.
Absolutely. But it's called Pilot Program. We watch the first episodes of every television show ever made. We're recording this week. It's our 25th episode. We honestly can't believe we made it to 25. But awesome. It's been a lot of fun, and to celebrate our 25th, we're going back to one of our favorite shows of all time, and that is Mad Men. So that's a great one. That's going to be an exciting one. That's one where Pierce and I were watching that in college as friends, and kind of became better friends because of the show. So we'll get a little nostalgic on that episode, and I think it'll be a fun one to listen to. So go check that out. shows.acast.com/pilotprogram.
That's awesome, man. Thanks again for putting this together. If you are tuning in, we really appreciate it. Don't be strangers. We're live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Central every week. If you're into what we're talking about, you can subscribe to all of Chase's links by following the link in chat. And if you're listening to this and not watching it, go to our show notes. A link to those episodes are there. And like and subscribe, follow along where you can. We put a lot of fun stuff out, and we try to involve our community. And we hope that you found a game that might be new to you tonight, and maybe got to talk about an old game that meant a lot to you. We'll be back